Hi everyone, I'm Rachel. I'm the Ambassador Communications Officer at Teach First here. I am joined by the lovely Jessica, who is a 2013 training programme ambassador, as well as the founder and chair of the Personal Development Network. Jess, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So, as Rachel mentioned, I'm Jess. I work now for East Learning, but I'm also the founder and chair of PD Network UK, which hopefully some people have heard of. And yeah, looking forward to telling you more about my journey.
Yeah, so I guess to kickstart with that then, do you want to give us just a bit of an overview of your career journey from starting with the Teach First programme and kind of go into where you are at now?
Yeah, sure. So I guess prior to Teach First, I went to Newcastle University, where I did a law degree, which I hadn't particularly enjoyed. I went through the motions after the law degree of trying to find a training contract, but really felt hugely out of place at that point because I was within a cohort of people that were all really fighting for this training contract, but seemed to have multiple connections and experience and contacts, and there's this huge amount of confidence kind of going out within an industry that I felt was quite daunting. Um, so I felt kind of out of place at that point. I didn't really feel any passion about wills and probate, commercial law, family law. Um, the opportunity came for me following that to go to New York for a year, which I loved. I worked over there as a legal assistant for a year just off Wall Street, which was brilliant. But when I came home, I really knew at that point legal industry wasn't for me, which is when I came across Teach First. So my mum was a maths teacher and a head of maths. She trained much later on in her life. And I'd always enjoyed working with young people, and it seemed like the perfect opportunity. I taught for 8 years. So I started I worked in Yorkshire. So I was at Spen Valley High School for the first kind of just under 3 years. And then I moved on to a school also in Kirklees, Manor Croft Academy, which was at the time going through some real difficulties. It just become an academy, and it still had really high disadvantage numbers, well, fairly high, around 35%, I think. Um, and I started as the head of maths there and then went on to be assistant principal, responsible for teaching and learning. And I absolutely loved it. The staff were brilliant, the school was brilliant. I had an amazing SLT, and we kind of really went through some changes, turned the school around, and it was a really brilliant time. However, when I got married, and when I fell pregnant with my eldest, I kind of realised straight away I needed to be near family and I needed that support. So I moved to the Northwest, which is where my family are based. And after having him, I tried to go back into teaching a little bit, and I had a look around some different schools. I worked in Liverpool for a little bit with an academy, but quite quickly realised teaching, parenting combination, I really struggled with, to be honest. My husband worked away quite a lot, and it wasn't really for me. So it was at that point that I found, and it was actually through the Teach First community, that I found East Learning and started working there. They're a small non-for-profit, which also still works in education. And I've been there ever since. 3.5 years later, I'm the director of programme, and they're brilliant, and I love it.
Oh, that's amazing. And what is it that East Learning does as an organisation?
So East Learning works with schools all over the country to support with kind of change, school improvement with a focus on personal development. So all of those things, everyone knows personal development, all of those things that fall outside of the curriculum. And it kind of supports with making sure that everything a school is doing is based on the actual students' needs, what they are interested in, what they are passionate about, their well-being, what their aspirations are. And we support schools to kind of take that data, make a plan, and then make sure that the plan that they have got in place is actually working, and check in on the students. And it's an amazing and equally as fulfilling as teaching, in terms of we're still having that impact on young people. But it's just kind of from a different, whereas previously it was maths and getting them the maths results and the GCSEs. This is much more about making sure that we're supporting students with their well-being, checking in on them. How is their self-esteem? Are we supporting them to be more confident people, resilient, to have that determination? All those things that actually we all really want for our students, for our young people, and as parents as well. I think that you kind of sometimes look at education with a little bit of a different lens. So yeah, that's kind of a snapshot into what we do at East.
No, that's brilliant to know, and I think that's what's really important, is kind of the two elements, the academia as well as that personal development, joining up Absolutely. To give people like a wholesome chance in life to have that real rounded experience. So what inspires and kind of motivates you to support the education of children in disadvantaged communities specifically?
Yeah. I think it's really interesting, because when we talk about disadvantage and the disadvantage gap, we're often thinking really about GCSEs and GCSE grades, and what's the difference between your grade 5s, between your disadvantaged and non-disadvantaged. And yes, we absolutely do need to reduce that gap when it comes to academic achievement and qualifications. And I wholeheartedly agree that that's one of the best things we can do for our students, is to kind of support them to get those grades, which then opens up opportunities and choice for them when they leave school. But again, it kind of comes back to, I think, what most people would actually agree is the biggest disadvantage gap is those skills, those soft skills. So students that are able to confidently communicate their opinions, they walk into a room with that confidence, with adults, with future employers, the resilience that they have to have, which you need through life, as well as, and it comes back to the kind of what we said right at the beginning, the work experience and the connections and the contacts, and being able to build your own personal network. And when you look at disadvantage in our disadvantaged students compared to those non-disadvantaged students, a lot of the time that's where the real gap is. And I think that personal development for me, as a teacher, as a senior leader, I was always trying to think about, well, how do we teach our students those skills, and how do we make sure that those students that actually, they've got a really low well-being and they really need support with their self-esteem, and they've got issues going on at home, and how do we support those students in a way that makes sure that when they leave school, we've helped that as well as got them those grades. So that's kind of where my passion, and I think probably the majority of people, if not everyone, who's a Teach First ambassador can really relate to that. Because yes, we want to get them the grades, and yes, we want to do all those things, but really what we want to do is create these well-rounded, successful, happy young people that can go out and thrive.
Yeah, as I said before, I feel like that's really important, and it's great that you have such passion for that. And I guess with this in mind, being kind of your personal development being your kind of like area of expertise, like, can you tell us a bit more about how you got into this area of work, like how you're making a difference in terms of creating the personal development network?
Yeah, sure. So the personal development network really came on the back of as I started to work with East Learning. So it really made sense for me that when I was looking for opportunities outside of the classroom, that I knew I was passionate about that personal development side of things. And East Learning is a non-for-profit. We support schools to develop that PD program. And a lot of what we do is also supporting schools to monitor the impact that they're having. So rather than just say, yeah, tick box, we do X, Y, and Z, it's okay, well, is that having the impact that you want it to have on those students? And really checking in on those individual students and making sure that every student has some kind of personalized plan, which is, I think, is really important when we look at our students, that we treat them as individuals. So I guess in terms of how we make a difference there's loads of examples. I guess a recent one I could give is we were working with a school specifically to support student wellbeing, which is a lot of schools at the moment post-COVID. So the first thing that we did is we identified the students that had low wellbeing scores. We drilled down into the reasons why. So it wasn't just, okay, these are our students that need help. It was, okay, well, what exactly is it that they need help with? How can we support them? And for some of those students, it was just a conversation. It was just regular check-ins with a member of staff. Some of those students, it was some self-esteem workshops that the school then put on. We linked that school up with another school that did similar things and had success, so they could kind of talk and network. And it was kind of on the back of that I saw a Teach First webinar, I think it was, about creating a network. And linking those two things up, it was really obvious that we've got people in schools that are responsible for personal development, which is huge, and that's their responsibility. Meanwhile, they're also trying to teach, 20 hours a week, and they're really struggling. People are really struggling to do the right thing for students. They're trying the hardest, but equally it's really difficult and it's really complicated. It covers so many different things, PSHE, careers, wellbeing, co-curricular clubs. And people all around the country are all trying to do this and feeling quite alone with it, I think. Some schools obviously support it more than others. And it was at that point that we said, when we saw the success that these two schools had once they'd connected, why are we not doing this for more schools? Why are we not connecting everyone that's working within personal development to learn from each other and to listen to each other, to support one another, to provide those ideas and those resources? And obviously the Teach First are brilliant at supporting networks and creating networks, and there are some really, really good ones. And I had a look, and there wasn't one for personal development. There was one for PSHE and there was one for careers, a really, really strong one for careers. But what we wanted was somewhere that someone who's responsible for all of those things can come together and can be with each other and can kind of create that support network. And that's kind of where PD Network was formed. So when did we start? We formed in February 21. And then we've kind of just grown from there. So we've got over 12,000 followers now. Not 12,000, 1,200. 12,000 is an ambition. Monday. 1,200 followers.
We'll get there.
And we've just come away from our second conference, which is we started just in the Northwest, and then we kind of said, after we'd done one conference in the Northwest, let's just go UK wide. So our second conference we've just ended, and that was in Birmingham. We had 75 people working within personal development, whether it's teachers, leaders, professionals, that all came together, and it was on a Saturday, so people gave up the weekend to come, and it was just brilliant. It was the atmosphere in the room that people really felt supported. People came by themselves, so they didn't know anyone, and yet they sat there and they made connections and they shared ideas. They listened to workshops, they got involved, and it was brilliant. It was a really, really good day.
Yeah, it went off on Twitter, didn't it, as well? Like you said about obviously the following that you've got, but the amount of responses that we saw, just of people sharing their insights and their highlights from the Personal Development Network conference, was incredible to see. Like, were there kind of any real highlights for you from like that, and sort of seeing that kind of support in action between the ambassador community members that like stands out?
Yeah, I mean, the day always, on the build up to the day, I'm always really, really nervous, thinking, oh, no one's going to turn up and what's going to go wrong, something's going to go wrong. And then on the day, you just kind of breathe this sigh of almost, it's relief, but it's equally, you just feel so humbled, to be honest, that you've got a room full of people. Like I say, people that work in industry, if you work on a Saturday, you get that day back. These people don't get that day back. They're in school on the Monday, they're teaching, they're in front of all those students, and to give up their days and come and then equally, say to me, oh, I've learned so much, and I've met so many people, and I think they leave feeling empowered, and it's inspiring. I sit and all of our speakers speak completely for free. No, we don't. No one gets paid. They do it because they are equally as passionate about getting personal development right for young people as well. So it's just, I mean, there's many moments I could say from the day. There was one moment where one of the guys I'd never met, he came up to me and he actually had tears in his eyes, which I'm sure he won't mind me saying. And he just said, I've literally just come to personal development as this is my first senior leader role. My school have kind of just given it to me. Nothing's been done before. They have no idea what they're doing. And they just said, sort it out. Would you Ofsted soon? Sort it out. And he just said, from this day, I've now got a plan. I know exactly what I'm doing. You know, I know which companies I'm going to work with. I know I've got people that I can email and ask for help. I've got WhatsApp numbers. And that's the kind of thing that you just go, okay, so we've made his life, hopefully, so much easier. And actually, if you look at the number of people that come to that conference, there is potential to kind of impact. I think we worked out that it was 33,000 students or young people, that the ideas and the connections and that they will have brought has potential to really impact those people. So it's powerful. And it's when you think about that, you think, okay, that's why we keep doing this, and that's why it's important that we make these days happen.
Yeah, powerful is exactly the word that I was going to use then to describe that. And that's incredible to think how much like real tangible impact that could have on, you know, that many thousands of students, and just through one day, let alone all the other kind of activities that you do. And I guess speaking of that kind of impact and how you kind of make a difference, can you kind of share an example or so of how you're making a difference with East Learning, like, and how it actually makes you feel to have that impact on students?
Yeah, so the work that we do at East it's really powerful in that I think it started before the company started, and Matt Lees is the CEO, the founder of East, and it started way before Ofsted made personal development a thing. And the reason that he started it was because similar experience. Well, he had an experience where when he went to high school, he went to standard state school, and he had his parents that took him to, rugby club and choir or music and all these different things. And yet all of his mates didn't have that, and there wasn't really that opportunity at school to have. And he went to Cambridge and realized that when he was surrounded by all these people at his university, that was a given that they'd had all of those experiences. And he thought, well, if my parents hadn't done it for me, like all of my friends back home, like that and that's, I guess, a different kind of, it's not a disadvantage gap, because he was actually really lucky that his parents did all those for him, and state school he went to was a good state school. But I think it comes back to when I said about almost like when I started my law degree and then went on to try and find these training contracts, and the confidence and those skills that you really, really need, and that we really want our young people to have. If you look at students often in private schools, they radiate that. They walk into a room and they can just do, and they've got that, and I'm generalizing, but majority probably do. And they've got the connections, and they've got all those different contacts, and they've got the work experience. They know exactly what they should have done. Their career path has been mapped out for them from a very early stage. Whereas we just don't have the resource, we don't have the time to try, and there's different priorities often in state schools, especially some of the schools that are really struggling. That's just not, personal development does become a tick box for Ofsted, and that's not the school's fault. That's just the realities. So I think it's really kind of the impact that we can have at East. I mean, we work with a school, it was just recently, where it's a science, technology, maths college, and we worked with them on their personal development program and their plan for the year. And what they had said was their work experience and their careers fairs is always based around those key, science, technology, maths. Any companies that are within that space, that's where their focus lies. And actually, from the data that they collected through the aspirations program, they saw that they had quite a chunk of students interested in the creative industries. So interested in, marketing was quite a big one. But there was a general interest in, well, what does that look like? And they had never even considered bringing companies in to support that group of students. So all of a sudden, these students then had this more personalized plan, that rather than just generic careers fair, we're going to bring in the army, we're going to bring in the NHS, it was very much, okay, we've got this group of students, they're going to sit here, they're going to speak to these, and they're going to find out more about the creative industries. And then we can then follow that up with a conversation around exactly what each of those students' next steps might look like. And wellbeing was the other example that I used previously. Some of our students aren't ready for career conversations and next step conversations. Actually, they need support right now, on their wellbeing and on what's going on at home, and whether they're sleeping, whether they're eating properly, what their self-esteem looks like. So I think for me, that's what kind of makes, really fires me up every day with East, is the fact that we can make a difference to these students by supporting the schools, by taking that massive, weight of, where do I even start with this? Taking that student data and helping them to create a plan, and then checking that they know it's actually working for those students. And that's kind of the key to getting this right.
Oh, that sounds so good. And I think it just shows, the need to have, like tailored experience and sort of really change a person's experiences, as you say, give opportunity for experience to happen. And I guess with that in mind, you will have had one sort of experience of kind of Teach First compared to other people in the ambassador community over kind of the time that you've been working really closely with Teach First. And as you know, we're marking 20 years since the first cohort began the Summer Institute at Teach First. And I was just curious on your kind of viewpoint as to what does 20 years of Teach First actually mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? I think the incredible thing about Teach First is that, as well as being given this amazing opportunity to teach and to work with young people, which in itself, is humbling, really. When you when you first start, it's scary and terrifying, but it's the most amazing opportunity to be given. But you're constantly reminded about the bigger picture. So even after leaving the classroom, you are still reminded that this is still our mission, and you are still working towards that, whether you be in or outside of the classroom. It just doesn't stop. There's always something that you can do, and actually there's always something that you should do. Yes, you might have stepped away from the classroom and you might be doing something completely different, but you should never forget those young people that you worked with and what the mission is of Teach First. Mm-hmm. So 20 years of Teach First, I think it means that you've got this group of people that now must be in the thousands, all striving towards this mission, and that group is only continuing to grow year on year, whether it be in the classroom, outside of the classroom, at the start of a journey, whether they're 20 years on. I think that's really powerful.
No, definitely. And it's obviously just really appreciate your time in kind of talking about all of this today. And hopefully it gives the ambassador community like a bit of an insight into your career, from starting off in Yorkshire to kind of working now in Warrington in the northeast. And yeah, I was just curious if there's anything else that you wanted to add about kind of telling your story here, really.
I think we've probably covered it all. I feel like I've covered a lot about everything. I think, if anything, I would just say for anyone that is kind of watching and interested in whether it be East Learning, whether it be the PD network, whatever it is, and would like any more, then I'm here to reach out to and get in touch. And I know obviously we've got the ambassador gathering coming up, which I will be at for both East and for the PD network. So happy to chat with anyone that wants a bit more information.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks for that. And yeah, so you'll be in the social enterprises zone for East Learning, and then the network zone for the PD network. So yeah, be great to see more people come along to the Great Ambassador Gathering on the 1st of July. And yeah, come and have a chat with Jess, come and find out more, and she's keen to hear from you too. So yeah, just thanks ever so much for your time today, Jess, and looking forward to seeing you at the gathering.
Thanks so much, Rachel.
Thank you.